السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذ أخذنا ميثاق بني إسرائيل لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا وذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وقولوا للناس حسنا وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة ثم توليتم إلا قليلا منكم وأنتم معرضون. صدق الله العظيم وصدق مولانه النبي الكريم، ونحن على ذلك ومن الشاهدين ومن الشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. This is from Surah Baqarah. And recall when we took the covenant from the children of Israel, enjoining upon them, do not worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to parents do good, and to relatives, orphans and needy, and speak to people good words, and establish prayer, and give zakah. Then you turned away, except a few of you, and you were refusing. So, inshallah, today we're going to be talking about speaking good, and a few experiences, a few things which have happened. There was an imam in Newark, New Jersey, who a few days ago was murdered in front of the masjid, in front of the door of the masjid. A very sad occurrence. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive him and accept him in the Jannah and give sabr to his family. But it was really sad, right? From one of the fraternities, the brotherhood of the imam, being an imam. Like, I don't consider myself the imam of this masjid, I'm not the imam, but I do the duties of an imam, leading Jumma. If I'm here, I lead the salah, or if I'm in Gastonia, I lead the salah, so on and so forth. And I've been doing this for almost like 17, 18 years. I'm like 35, 36 now. I've been doing it for more than half my life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. So, coming from that background, teaching, preaching, things like this, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us all humble. Having done this for so long, and you hear about somebody who passed away while he was at the door of his masjid, it's really sad. And this isn't the first time it's happened in the United States where an imam has been targeted. It happened in New Jersey, New York a few years ago, where a Bengali imam and the muadhin were targeted. And it's happened in other places, other states as well. My own father, back in 1997, voluntarily used to lead. He was stabbed by another Muslim individual in the masjid while he was praying Dhuhr with my grandfather. So for the Muslim community, unfortunately, this is nothing new. Sadly, it's nothing new. But at the same time, we should try to be safe. A lot of the police departments, they offer like active shooter or active like assailant training. We should take those trainings. Inshallah, we're trying to put one together for the masjid and the community, where they teach us what to do, what not to do, how to stay safe, things like this, right? At the same time, this is a physical attack, right? Many people from within our community or outside of our community, they say things, right, which are improper, which shouldn't be said. And when they say things like this, it hurts people's feelings, or either it misguides them, right? And I will share a few stories like this. Many times, like I try to give as much time as I can to the community. I have, 2 or 3 other things which I do for work. I have a family, I have kids, so on and so forth. There's a lot going on, even in my own life, but I get a lot of phone calls from people. And they have a lot of questions. One of the things which we have to learn is, if you don't have the answer to a question, you don't have to answer it. You can tell them, hey, let me get back to you. Let me call you back. Let me ask a scholar. If you're not a scholar, ask a scholar. If you're a person who is a scholar and you don't know the answer, let me get to a higher authority, a scholar who knows more than me. There's no harm in saying, I don't have the answer right now. Rather, it's more of a sign of humility and being humble that you take your time to give the answer, rather than just saying something out of your own desires and out of your own heart. Right? It's always best to double check your work. Before you turn in a project or assignment, we double, triple, quadruple, check our work 5 times, because we know that how important that grade is. So, when somebody asks a question, if you don't know the answer, it is not necessary for you to seem like you're smarter than the rest of society and give the answer to that, right? When you do something like that, and when it's proven or somebody finds out the answer you gave was unsatisfactory, it was wrong, you will seem like a person who's not so smart. We'll try not to use any improper words, but you'll seem like an idiot. And you don't want to seem like an idiot, and idiot's a lighter word than something we could use, but you don't want to look like an idiot in front of people. So rather than seeming like an idiot, just be honest and be like, I don't have the answer. That is the smartest answer you can give. This is the safest play you can make, is to say, I don't have the answer. Because if you misguide somebody or you mislead somebody, and they go according to your knowledge, imagine the amount of sins you will accumulate because you gave the wrong answer. So always play the safe side of things, and if you don't have the answer, you don't have to give the answer. Exchange methods of communication, and then be like, I will get back to you. Right? This is the safest thing to do. So the reason I'm bringing this up, there was a sister who converted a few months ago. She actually came to the masjid after Jummah. She tried to, meet whoever was, helping out, and there was nobody here, and somebody gave her my number, right? And so she reached out to me, and she says, I want to take my shahada. So we were going to meet her on Sunday and give her shahada. But there was actually like a fall festival happening, and so we said, why don't you come to the fall festival? It's a good gathering, a lot of Muslims. You can meet, you can meet some sisters, it'll be good. So she came. And we gave her a shahada. Sheikh Muhammad Khan gave her a shahada. We introduced her to some sisters. She built that sisterhood. This is very important. When somebody converts, rather than trying to continuously just teach them, what's more important is making them feel at home and giving them a welcoming community, right? Giving them a welcoming brotherhood, or for sisterhood, so that they feel comfort and they learn at their own pace. And they stay connected to the community. If we just hand them a stack of books and be like, look, learn all of this, and start coming to the masjid, they're going to get scared. When people convert, we're not supposed to just scare them, right? Hand them a stack of books. This is the Quran. This is Riyadus Salihin. Study some hadith. Learn how to pray. Start coming to the masjid 3 or 4 times a day, right? We ourselves aren't coming 3 or 4 times a day. We expect somebody who's converted to start coming 3 or 4 times a day. We don't know the condition of their family, what's going on at the house. They might be praying, hiding from their family members, because they know if their family finds out they're Muslim, they'll throw them out of the house. Right? We don't take into thought, what are they going through? So sometimes it's nice to just lend an ear, just listen to what they have to say, and maybe consult with another convert who's went through something similar, right? Or connect them with another convert, so that they build that, that community, that, brotherhood, sisterhood. If you have a community breakfast, like I think they've started, they do it Saturday or Sunday morning over here at this masjid as well, where the brothers just come and they sit and they have breakfast after Fajr. Get them to come to that. And it's not necessary to always be teaching people stuff, right? A lot of times, just being a good friend is the best university. You get to learn so much from having a good friend, right? So the sister, she's learning on her own. Some of the sisters are helping her. She goes to some of the halaqas. She goes to some of the sisters' gatherings, so on and so forth. And then what happens is, now she's looking for a husband. She joined some Muslim communities online, and she starts talking with an individual from overseas. From a Muslim country, majority Muslim country, 95 to 98% Muslim country. I won't take the name of the country. We're not trying to expose any countries or any people, because this is a mistake of one person, and we don't say the mistake of one person is the mistake of a whole community, right? We don't say that. So this sister, she starts talking with this individual, this brother, and this brother asks her if she does hijab. She covers her hair, wears modest clothing, stuff like this. And she says, yes, I do hijab. This was one of the first things we told her, that now you're Muslim, you should wear modest clothing. This is for men and women, not just for women and men wherever they want, wear whatever they want. Men are supposed to also wear respectable and modest clothing, right? A lot of times men forget this, and they think the woman should be covered in the Afghani style, the shuttlecock burqa, and you have the mesh on this, and that's it. Just hide the woman and put her in the corner. And the men can wear whatever they want. They want to wear shorts and a tank top and go out in public, it's okay. No, the men are also supposed to wear modest clothing, right? So we explained to her, she came to the event, she was able to buy some clothing, modest clothing, she was very happy, she bought some hijabs, so on and so forth. Now this individual is talking to her, and he's having this conversation, and he's like, do you wear the hijab? She says, yes, I do. He tells her that it's not mandatory, it's not an obligation. As a Muslim from a Muslim country is telling her it's not an obligation. She says, no, it says in the Quran. She says it's in the hadith. She says, this is a new Muslim. been Muslim for 2 months. She's telling this guy, no, it's in the Quran, it's in the Hadith, and it's from the teachings of, the Prophet ﷺ and his wives, that, the women are supposed to cover themselves, the hair especially. And he's telling her no. And she's like, okay, what is your proof? What is your dalil? He says, well, in the country I live in, majority of the women don't cover their hair, so this is my dalil. So this means it's not mandatory. And so she reached out to me for this because she's like, this is the most absurd answer I've ever heard from anybody. And I told her, look, Muslims are not perfect, Islam is. And you'll meet a lot of foolish Muslims who will say whatever they want to get a point across that maybe he wanted to see your hair, this is why he's telling you this. It's like, stop talking to him. He's a crazy man. Right? Then she was talking with another individual, not for the purpose of marriage, just for the purpose of knowledge. And she asked, about hadith. She didn't know about hadith. So this individual started telling her himself, he's like, oh, well, hadiths are like, they're parables, they're fables, they're stories. And we're supposed to get a lesson from them. But they may not always be true. And she's asking me this, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what kind of a Muslim, this individual is a Muslim, she told me, what kind of a Muslim would say this? This is, in both of these situations, these people don't have knowledge, right? They don't have knowledge, and they're speaking out of turn. They're teaching something improper. And so she's talking to me, and I have a sister. She had a list of 10 or 12 questions. And some of these she had, other Muslims had told her these. They were trying to teach her things which she didn't even ask. And they were teaching her wrong. They were teaching her wrong things. So she's asking me these questions. We're going through this list of questions. And at the same time, I'm getting questions from one of the convert brothers from Gastonia who has like 4 or 5 questions, right? And then, a few days prior to that, I was sitting in the masjid and he was reciting Quran to somebody. And he made a mistake. He's learning the Quran. And the person who was teaching him tried to correct him, and he corrected him even worse. Whatever he was reading might have been closer to what was right. And he took him even further away from the tajweed and the tartil and everything. Right? So we have to be very careful. When we want to be the professor, we should actually be qualified to be the professor. Right? Everybody wants to have the professor, the nice table in the front and be able to teach everybody, right? But if you're not qualified to be the professor, it's best to stay in your lane or either stay quiet. So the sister's like, what is a hadith? I'm explaining to her. I'm like, look, we're not going to go into the gradings of hadith, sahih, hasan, stuff like this. But the hadith are the sayings or, the actions of the Prophet ﷺ, which have been related to us or narrated to us by means of a very strong tradition. And I explained to her, look, if you want a simple book, you get Riyadh al-Salihin. It has many of the hadith of fadail, of virtues, and you can learn a lot from it. And she's like, okay, so she bought the book and stuff like that. But there's so many people out there who are Muslim, who are giving out knowledge which isn't knowledge. They're giving out whatever they feel. And this is very dangerous. And the hadith, what does the hadith tell us? The hadith tells us, the Prophet ﷺ said, he who believes in Allah and the last day must either speak good or remain silent. Either speak good or remain silent. This is from Muslim. So if you know the knowledge that you're giving is improper, it's not complete, you're not speaking good. It's better to remain silent. If somebody asks you a question, like I said earlier, I'm going to repeat it because a lot of people weren't here. If somebody asks you a question and you don't have the answer, you don't have to make up an answer. If you don't know calculus and your kid comes to you, are you going to just make up an answer and write it down on the paper, and when they go to school the next day and the teacher tells them this is completely wrong, and they come back home and they tell you, hey, what you did was wrong, you're like, oh, well, the teacher probably made a mistake. You're going to seem like a dummy. So in all cases, if you don't have the knowledge, you don't have to give an answer. You don't have to give an answer, right? So, we meet people throughout the walks of life, throughout the courses of our lives, who have an expertise in a certain subject. Have an expertise in a certain subject. If somebody has converted to Islam, they've been Muslim, they've been practicing for 10 to 15 years, they probably have a better grip on how to deal with, how to talk with, and how to guide a person who has just converted to Islam. Because they have went through all of those pains, those growing pains of being a Muslim, growing pains of being in a house which may be filled with people who are not Muslim, who may not even be friendly to Islam. So in these cases, we have to connect those people so that they have the proper source of knowledge and they have the proper guide. The Prophet ﷺ, when he had his guide, when him and Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu are going from Mecca to Medina, doing hijrah, and the Quraysh are trying to kill them, if they didn't have an adequate guide, what would have happened? They would have ended up in trouble or ended up in the wrong part of the desert. But they chose the right guide, right? They chose the right guide. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the Sahaba and everybody, the unanimous opinion was Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu should be the Khalifa. Now when the problems came up, when Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was Khalifa, when the people said we're not going to pay the zakat anymore, and Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, no, everybody's going to pay zakat. This is an order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shown to us by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He took a strict stance on it. He went to war with those people who went against zakat. You have to have the right guide. When the famine came, at the time of the Khilafah of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, for people who were stealing, the punishment of stealing was taken away because it was a famine. You had the right guide. You had the right guy in charge. When you don't have the right guy or the right person in charge or the right person guiding you, right? A lot of times what happens even in America is, if you're using Apple Maps doesn't get updated properly. And you end up trying to drive over a bridge that isn't there, and your car falls, into the lake or something like that. It happened with one guy in Australia. He ended up 40 miles out from any reception, and he got stuck out there until somebody could come save him. His car broke down, right? It happens even with Google Maps. I'm just taking a dig at Apple Maps, whoever has the iPhone. But in general, if something like that, happens, right? You're following the GPS, it takes you down the wrong way. You're like, well, I was following something which was reliable. Now it's the fault of the GPS. But at the same time, if you see that the bridge is broken and you keep driving because you're following the GPS, that's on you. So we always have to find the right guide. We have to find the right person to guide us. And if we can't find it, we wait for the right person. If the cook is not good, do you want to eat raw food? Or would you rather wait a little bit of time till a good cook comes? Brother Simon, if we go to the men's shelter and somebody doesn't know how to cook and they're giving out raw food, will you stop them? Yeah, you'll stop them. You don't want people to get sick. When it comes to our spirituality, ruhaniya, that if we are not following the correct path, we're not following the correct procedures, we have to stop ourselves, or others have to stop us and be like, look, you're down the wrong path. You're treading down the wrong path. If you continue down this path, you will spiritually get sick. And this is very dangerous for you. And then, if we have the right person, we shouldn't play games with them. If we play games with them or we bother them, eventually they'll give up on us. I'll share a story, and I don't know if I've shared it here before, where, when my grandmother, Allah have mercy on her, she passed away 4 or 5 years ago, she came to America for 1 or 2 years to live with us in our house. And when I used to lead Taraweeh, my parents used to ask me to read to her. And what's it called? And this is like 2008, I think. And she was like, okay, read to me right now. It's before Maghrib or something like that, before Isha, right? Read to me right now. And then, I have my wudu. And I don't want to break my wudu, right? I want to pray Isha with my wudu, so read to me right now, don't read to me later. I'll pray Isha and probably the wudu will break and I'll be done for the night, right? I'll pray Taraweeh or whatever. And then she was like, okay, read to me. So I used to go and read to her. So she would be like, okay, I don't have wudu right now, let me go to the bathroom real quick and do wudu. I said, okay. So the clock would be at like 7:30, right? Just giving an example. And she would be like, I'll be back in 5 minutes, right? I'll be back in 5 minutes. I said, okay. And what I would do is I would take the clock and I would crank it up to 10 minutes, right before she would come out. And she would come out and I'd be like, it was 7:40. And she'd be like, oh, how did it take me 10 minutes to do wudu? That's all I did. And, I tried this a few times, right? And one time what happened is I was like, let's take the ante up a little bit. She goes to the bathroom, right? And instead of 10, I said, let's try 15. And she came out and she's like, no, this can't be right. You're doing something with the clock. I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything with the clock. It's like, no, you're doing something with the clock. So she called my mom then. And she's like, what time is it? And my mom told her, oh, it's this time now. She's like, oh, I see, you were messing with the clock now. So, if it's your grandmother, you can mess with her. You can have a little bit of joking time. But if it's somebody who's spiritually guiding you, you mess with them too much, they will give up on you. Because they can only handle so much, right? So a lot of times when we have our shuyukh, when we have our ulama, people like to ask questions. It's okay. Asking questions is a good thing. But asking questions which have no basis and have no purpose is damaging to you and is damaging to the person who's trying to teach people. Asking the question, if I am traveling, how do I perform my salah, right? That's okay. It's a good question. You travel. You ask that question, right? If you ask a shaykh, you're like, can I do masah on these socks? Depending on which shaykh, they'll give you the answer according to the knowledge they possess, right? Things like this. Now if you're asking the shaykh, if I'm traveling in a UFO, where do I pray my salah? Now this is just wasting time. And trust me, these are not questions which people don't ask. People do ask questions like this. Like, oh, well, if I go to the moon, like, they had a few years ago, there was an Indonesian brother, he was an astronaut, and he was up there, and people are like, well, how did he pray? He was up there and the Kaaba is on here. This is a very unusual circumstance. Do you think NASA is going to be hiring you to go in the space shuttle and pray from there? If they are, then ask this question. Otherwise, stick to the relevant questions, right? Stick to things which will benefit you. Yesterday we were here last night, and we were talking, it was me and a brother who was a convert. Alhamdulillah, he's been converted to Islam for like 17, 18 years. And we were talking about that the knowledge which we have, we're going to be questioned about it, right? So acquire the knowledge which is necessary, and don't deprive yourself of necessary knowledge. When you speak good and teach others, or either if you're going to say something which is improper, just remain silent. This is better for you. Because if you say something improper, like let's say you get into an argument with somebody, it's best, honestly speaking, it's best, like especially if it's with your wife, it's best to remain silent. Because in hindsight, you may say something, like in hindsight now, you may say something at that point in time which you will regret in hindsight. So it's always best to maintain your cool when you get angry. Always best to maintain your cool when you get angry. At the same time, if somebody is saying something to test you, they're really trying to, ruffle your feathers, right? It's best to remain silent and don't even answer them, right? When you do that, it makes them even angrier. And I'll close off with an example. The other day at the game, Utah Jazz versus the Dallas Mavericks, brother Kyrie Irving, he was playing, and some fans were Israel supporters. They came and they brought signs, and they said, I'm a proud Jew. And he didn't say anything. And he kept playing, and they kept pointing the signs at him. And so he has a tattoo, which is the Star of David. And he's like, I'm Jewish as well. And it made them even angrier. And the Jazz, they made them put the signs up there like, look, these are, not proper signs. You shouldn't be. All four of them were sitting there. They had signs. They're like, this is disrupting other people's experience. Put them away. And they made a whole ordeal out of this, right? And what did he do? He kept playing. And this is exactly what the brother did. He stayed quiet, he kept playing, he minded his own business, and he killed them with kindness. He killed them with kindness. And they had nothing to say. Now they're making a big deal out of it because he didn't say anything. Sometimes when you don't say anything, most of the time, when you don't say anything, it hurts people more than any of the verbal jabs you can give them. Because now they're like, I can't get in his mind. Everybody's trying to get in your mind. Honestly speaking, everybody's trying to get in your mind and make you do what they want. When you take that power away from them to get in your mind, you have not just won this battle, you have won the war. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq, may He give us a better understanding, and may He give us the ability to keep people out of our minds. Jazakallah khair.